Hello, I am Modular, and welcome back to Satisfactory, Update 1.2. In this save, I'm using a few of the new game modes that have just been added. I need 100 times the space elevator parts, while each machine takes 5 times the normal power. The resource nodes are random, and so is their purity. In the last video, I expanded my road and train network farther into the rocky desert. This allowed me to bring back the 60 motors I'm now creating out there with these towers. With the newly created motors, the rubber I created earlier this phase, and the smart plating I've been making since the last phase, I was able to automate the modular engines at a rate of 30 per minute. That takes care of the 50,000 space elevator part. All that's left is the 10,000. How hard could it be? The good old rocky desert. We're going to be spending a bit more time out here. If I pull up the good old codex and go over to parts, the adaptive control unit is the very first one. Now it's in alphabetical order. Unlike the last space elevator part, I don't have any of these things already automated. The automated wiring was the first towers I decided to delete. Got a little bit built up, but not anywhere close to the amount that I need. This is going to be another modular factory. I'm probably going to have to break this up into 2 videos. Thankfully, I can pair up the circuit boards and the computers because that just makes sense. Today, my goal is to knock out the circuit boards, heavy modular frames, and computers. And then in the next video, I'll build the automated wiring and then bring it all together to make the ACUs. Let's take a look at the computers. These are locked, but I already have them scanned, so I can just pick whichever one that I want to use. I'm not going to go the crystal computer route. It is nice making them in the assembler, but you have to make the crystal oscillators, and those are only in manufacturers. So you don't really get away from using manufacturers. Now the nice thing is I could use the default, and as far as the oil products go, that's 16 plastic for one computer, or there's the good old Caterium computer, and that's only 6 rubber for one computer. I like that ratio much better. The only problem with that is my factory over in the grassy fields is making 500 rubber, and 450 of it is going to the modular engines. But lucky for me, I've got 400 polymer resin just being sunk right out here. Each of these oil power plants have a byproduct of 200 polymer resin. It's funny how quickly it changed. In the early game, when constructors and smelters are 20 megawatts, 150 for the sink is a lot. Now that I'm at this point of the game, it's equal to 1 refinery. Between these two, I have more than enough for what I have planned. Speaking of the plan, let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. As I just mentioned, I'm going to be using the Caterium computer alternate recipe. The ratio for oil products to one computer is just better than the default, and just to add on to that, converting polymer resin to rubber is a better ratio than turning it into plastic. And that's a big reason why I picked these recipes. For the circuit boards, I'll be using the silicon circuit board because then it's just copper sheets and silica. And then I just need to make the copper sheets, silica, quick wire, and the rubber. I've got a Caterium node right here, and I only need 84 ore. The copper node isn't far either, it's just at the north end. I believe the closest quartz node is directly underneath the motor factory. But I'll figure that part out later. Let me get the foundations placed. I'm hoping this is enough space, at least for all the towers. It's not going to be enough for the refineries too, but I can just build out over the water for those. Alright, we're going to go ahead and start with the smelters. This is going to have the 84 Caterium ore incoming. So let's just work with that number because that's easy. So we've got the 84 ingots divided by 18. I only need 1 blueprint, so that's 18 smelters divided by the default rate of 45 Caterium ore. Multiplied by 100, down to 10%. I only need 1 blueprint. That's beautiful. I'm gonna make sure that I've got plenty of space, so we'll just give it 3 there, and I don't think I'm gonna need this iron node anytime soon. For the next tower over, we switch to constructors. This one is gonna be making the silica. I need 143 silica. I'm gonna use 2 blueprints, so that's 24 machines. The default rate is 37.5. which gives us a clock speed of, alright, just under 16. There's 1 and 2. The third and final row is going to be copper. 286 copper ingots divided by 54 smelters. That's 3 blueprints. Default rate of 30. All right, still under 20%. Just enough space. Well, it's pretty close. At least none of the machines are actually clipping into the rock. That's pretty minor. Lots of fun patterns so far. And with so few, this belt works super easy. So give me a second and then we'll move on to the second row. The whole 3 lifts that I needed are in. Let's move on to the constructors. I'm turning all the Caterium ingots into quick wire, which is going to be a total of 140. And again, only 1 blueprint, so that's 12 machines. Default rate is 60. Terrific. None of these towers are going to be tall enough to need more than the 2 foundations. I do love when that's all I need to do. The copper ingots are all being turned into copper sheets. 143 copper sheets. Normally I need 14.3 machines. I think this is going to end up being my tallest blueprint. I'm going to use 6, which is 72 machines. Default rate of 10, multiplied by 100. Just under the 20% again. That's great. Seems tall compared to the other ones, but compared to what we did in the last video, this whole factory is kind of tiny. Alright, now in this empty spot, I am going to combine the copper sheets from here and the silica from here into some assemblers. We'll just keep using the purple and green. If you're wondering, these are just the default Swatch 7 colors. In total, I'm going to be making 65 circuit boards. This is going to take 4 blueprints, because each blueprint only has 6, for a total of 24 machines, divided by the default rate of 12.5, multiplied by 100, just over 21. I think I'll be okay. Now that it's nice and centered, just 4 of these. Okay, not bad. The belt work for the Caterium, it's all taken care of. For the silica, I just need to group up these 2 towers. And then I just need 2 layers of splitters for the circuit boards. Load balancing, that'll be easy. For the copper, because I placed 3 of these and 6 of these, I'm going to do what I've done a few times. And I'll have each of the smelter towers get split and feed 2 of the constructor towers. Give me a second and I'll just show you. Now each one of the smelter blueprints goes directly into a smelter. That gets split in half between 2 of the constructor ones. On the other side, it gets all merged up until we get to the bottom. And then that snakes around to the front of this tower. And then this one just needed to get split between the 4. Turns out I did need just a little bit more space, so I've added a few more foundations. And swapped out my Mark 1 for a Mark 2 blueprinter. We need the good old manufacturers again. Grab the Caterium computer alternate. Now I can set the clock speed. I'm going to be making a whopping 10 computers per minute. I'll be using 16 machines, which is 4 blueprints. 3.75 is the default rate. The manufacturers are definitely costly, so out of all the steps, I definitely wanted to make sure that this one was underclocked a decent amount. That's what I like to see. Because I've added an extra foundation, and it's a 5x5 instead of the 4x4. I think I'm just going to line it in a straight line with the middle row. Thankfully, this is the last tower, which is good, because I'm basically out of space. And that's all the machines I need to make 10 computers per minute. Or it would be if I already had the rubber available. Even though there's 3 inputs, there's only 4 blueprints. So that's going to be pretty easy to knock out. Next step, I'm going to add a few more foundations just on the other side of this rock thing. And out here is where I'll put the refineries, because I do need to add a few more water extractors as well. Now that the foundations have been extended, let's place another blueprint. My generic 3 refinery blueprint is coming in handy, because that's exactly how many refineries I need. All 3 are going to be making the residual rubber at 100%. Means I need 120 resin and 120 water. The 120 water is exactly 1 water extractor. I do really like the lookout tower trick to placing water extractors, so I'm going to line this up with the junction. And then I'm just going to let it hang halfway over, so that should be a 4-meter gap. And now when I hold control, it'll snap to this. Lock it in place, make sure. Nope, didn't quite line that up. There we go. Now we're lined up. And because this platform is, like 2 meters taller than where the pipe is going to come out, it's nice to have that extra room. Now I can put it in horizontal to vertical, and it'll plug straight in. Obviously, we got to change the color of the pipe. Now, this 120 polymer resin is going to come from over here. Even though that bit is closer, I'm going to need that for the next project. So I'd rather use this one over here. Let's see, it should be able to come out through here. I think we'll have it come this way. We'll just have it run flat until we get to here. Get rid of that guy. Because from here, we can just change the level all the way up to what I need. Which is probably 2 more meters. First try. So now I just need to do a tiny bit of load balancing because this belt has 200 on here, but I only need 120. 120 over 200 is 0.6, which would be 3/5. Alright, so if it's coming out of here, I want to get things lined up as well as I can. So the starting merger would be lined up right there. So we're going to move this over. Okay, so the 200 is going to get plugged into there. And for now, I can just do that. So that's where this belt is going to get plugged in. And now I just need a splitter here. And I'm going to rotate it sideways. Another splitter right next to it. And then one last merger right here. And it all just barely fits. Oh, perfect. Alright, so 200 goes in here. The way the 5-way split works is we're going to loop some back, which ends up being 1/5. So whatever your incoming amount is, if you're doing it this way, just multiply the incoming amount by 1.2, and that'll tell you what that needs to be. But this is going to end up being 240, and then we split it in half, so this is going to be 120, and then the other 120, I'm just going to make a quick little stubby lift here. And I'm just going to use a Mark III lift and belt to get it out of here a little bit faster. And that right there is the 120 that's getting turned into rubber. The other 120 that's getting plugged into this splitter, we need to use all 3 outputs. So one of them is getting looped back. So here is the 40 that's making the 200 into 240. And then the other 2 outputs are both going into this merger. And here is the 80 that is going to continue to get sunk. Now all I need to do is just delete this belt and this lift. Connect this merger to the sink, and then the 120 resin is going to head over there. And that is almost everything I need to do, but I almost forgot one last major part. I talked about it in the beginning and then I completely forgot. I am actually making more circuit boards than I need, at least for the computers, and so I actually don't want this to plug straight into here. What I need to do is bring that belt over to here, do a little bit of load balancing, and then the correct amount will go to the computers. The other amount is what I need for the actual adaptive control units. So let's just go ahead and... I love that we can blow those up now. It is just so much easier than having to mine it. Alright, so let's delete that belt. That is going to come over to here. I think if I start right here, that should give me enough space. Here's the diagram that I came up with. So I'm just going to start with the merger. And then we go to a splitter. Because I've got plenty of space going this way, instead of doing them right up next to each other or even just a 1 meter gap, I'm going to give them a nice 2 meter gap. Now I switch back to a merger, 2 splitters, and 1 final merger. And then on this side, we just need to line up 1 more merger, although instead of having it face forward, I'm going to go ahead and spin this to the left because that's the 40 that's going to go in to make computers. Alright, so we're going to start with the 65 coming in from here. Eventually 10 is going to get looped back, and so this belt is going to become 75. Using all 3 outputs, I'll get 25 on each one. And this is the 25 that's for now just going to get sunk, but eventually I need that for the very final step. This 25 is then going to do a 5-way split. So we'll loop back 5. This will become 30. So that's 15 and 15. Using all 3 outputs, we've got 5 on each one. So there's 5, there's 5, and here's the 5 that we need to loop back to that merger. And I'm just gonna change that, rotate that merger around. And I think I'm gonna run this one on the ground. And then the 25 that I'm gonna sync, that can just run out this way. Okay, so now we've got the load balancing done. Guess I just need one last lift here. And then that is gonna plug into there. Okay, so now we've got the correct amount of circuit boards going into the computer tower. Now I've just got a little bit of busy work. I need to put miners on all the nodes and get those belted over, and then get everything connected to power. Welcome back to the new computer and circuit board factory. Let's go on a quick little overview of what's changed, and then we'll get it turned on. The Caterium node is nice and close, so that just got to get belted down, and then just head through everything. And into that smelter tower. The copper didn't have far to go either. It just goes to this point, drops down, and then into its tower. The quartz has a little bit of a journey. Because this one has so far to go, it's already turned on. I think I just connected it to the main power grid. We'll take a look at that in a second. It was just going to take a while for it to show up if I turned it on with the rest of the miners. So I'll just delete this smart splitter in the sink when we're ready. But if we follow this, we come back, and this was all I actually had to add. I was able to just piggyback on the existing foundations I already built. And here we are. I decided to just connect it to the main power grid just so I could have this on early, and it's temporary. It'll only get sorted out later. The polymer resin is going through the balancer, and my 120 is headed over to this section. And for now, I'm just syncing it. That way everything continues to run and that power plant doesn't shut off. The rubber will get up and going pretty quickly, so this will be the last thing to get turned on. And that has the added benefit of giving the water extractor a little bit more time to fill up all of this. The circuit boards are just going to go straight into the sink because I don't really need circuit boards for anything. The computers, on the other hand, I don't have those automated yet, so it seems like a good idea to just save as many as I can for now. And then there's the smart splitter setup if it takes me so long to get the entire thing going. Most likely, we'll get this whole project finished before the smart splitter ever kicks in, but just in case it does take me too long, the overflow will kick in and then I'll start syncing computers. But at only 10 a minute, that's actually going to take quite a while. So hopefully that doesn't happen. We've still got a good amount of power. I don't think we're going to have an issue quite yet. Starter for this one is going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to flip the switch. I'm going to delete that smart splitter and get the quartz sent in. And then after a minute or two, I'll get the rubber started. And let's start the stopwatch. computer number 1. Now I've got some throughput monitors. Let's see how long it takes to get up to the 10 computers and 25 circuit boards. Not surprising, it's probably going to bounce between 9 and 11, maybe even 8 and 12. But we're looking good so far. We've got a couple more factories to build, so as long as I check in on this every once in a while and make sure that everything's still running fine, I think we're good to go. And I should be able to build up a nice little stock of computers here. It's time for heavy modular frames. I've got a couple different options to make them, and they each have their pros and cons. I have decided to go with the heavy flexible frame alternate, because I can easily turn some more of that polymer resin into rubber. That's an easy part to take care of. Besides that, I just need modular frames, encased industrial beams, and some good old screws. The other great thing about this recipe is it pairs up really well with the steel screw recipe. Steel screws are an amazing alternate recipe. If you need to create a lot, each constructor puts out 260. The downside is you get 52 screws for every steel beam, which ends up working out great for the amount of screws I need for the final step. If I use it for the reinforced iron plates or the modular frames, I just end up with some crazy decimal points for the amount of iron ore and coal I need. And I just don't want to deal with that. So I'm taking the easy way out on those and just using cast screws. I know this is a lot, especially because I've broken up the iron ingot into the 5 different places it's going. So let me get some foundations placed, and I think I've got a better way to visualize all this. The foundations are placed, and I've already laid out where all the different towers are going to go. Since all of the towers from smelters up to assemblers are all a 4x4, it makes it really easy to plan out where things are going to go and make sure that I've got enough space. So I just changed the color for where the tower is going to go, and then gave myself just a really basic sign so that I can kind of keep track of where everything's going to go. And I really don't use Satisfactory Modular enough, and I should probably start utilizing it a little bit more. But I thought throwing this in here would give just a little bit of a better visual aid. Just another way to help visualize where everything is going to go. We've got 17 different towers to place, so let's jump into it. And like with most of my other factories, I'm going to do this one row at a time, and that way I can knock out some of the belt work before I move on and not leave it into one giant project at the very end. Let's start at this end and work our way back. This one is going to be our 360 iron ingots. So that'll be 360 ingots divided by, I'm going to use 3 blueprints, so that's going to be 54 machines, divided by the default rate of 30. That's pretty close. Having the foundations already outlined is pretty convenient. I probably should have been doing this earlier. Well, that's 1 tower down. 4 more to go for this row. The next tower over needs 175 ingots. That'll be 2 blueprints, so 36 machines. And hey, this one kind of makes up for the other one. So 2 on this one. Next one up needs 156.25. 156.25. Same thing, 2 blueprints. Even better. And just need 2 for this one. Next one is 75. Only need 1 blueprint, so that's 18. Nice and underclocked. And the last one needs 76 2/3, which as a fraction is 230 over 3. We just need to do that. 230 divided by 3, and then input the rest of it. Only going to use 1 blueprint, so that's 18. Default rate of 30, multiplied by 100. Yep, just ever so slightly higher than the other one. That looks right to me. One last smelter tower. Now I just need to delete a few extra portrait signs and add just a few lifts and belts, but we're not too crazy yet, so this is all pretty simple. Oh, and I didn't even notice when it finished, but finally hit 250,000 versatile framework. You know, I'll be honest, I did not think that was going to be the first one to finish, but I really should have known better. Gotta love when there's only one blueprint. Basically get to just skip those, and then the other three are super easy because they only needed one splitter. Alright, so far so good. So let's start with the farthest one again, which is going to be my iron pipes. That's going to be 90 pipes, and I want to use 3 blueprints. Then I can just pair up one blueprint with one blueprint, and the belt work is easy. For constructors, 3 blueprints is 36 machines. The default rate is 25, and multiply by 100, down to 10%. Good power savings. Alright, nice and easy, just 3 of these. Each of these blueprints should be outputting 120, so just so it doesn't have any issues, I'm just going to use a Mark III. And there's our steel pipes. Next up, 700 cast screws. 700 screws. This is going to be a taller one. I'm going to use 72 machines, which is 6 blueprints. Terrific. All lined up. And there's number 6. Oh, screws. And we're not done with screws. The next one's going to make 625. I'm going to use the same amount of blueprints, so 72 machines. I definitely need to add some more dimensional depots to concrete. I really want to just redo my entire starting area. Hopefully soon. There's the 6. Because I need to make steel ingots for the steel beams, for the steel screws, I figured I might as well use the steel cast plate alternate, and I can use some of the steel ingots for that. There's the alternate I was looking for. And I always forget, these are in foundries. I keep thinking they're in assemblers, but they're not. Now I can select my steel cast plate. So I was slightly wrong in what I just said. I'm not making 75 iron plates. It has 75 of the steel ingots incoming, but I'm actually going to be making 225 iron plates. But this only needs 4 blueprints, which is 24 machines. Each machine outputs at a default rate of 45, just over my target of 20%. And there's the 24 foundries I need for that step. Last but not least, solid steel ingots. At least I already have the foundries up. I'll be making 115 in total. And to do that, I only need 2 blueprints, which is 12 machines. Default rate is 60, multiplied by 100. Beautiful. 1 and 2. As far as the belt work going from tower to tower, this section still isn't too bad. It's the part after this that gets a little bit trickier. For the screw towers, all the ingots fit on one incoming belt, so I just need to split that up evenly across all the towers. For the 2 towers of foundries, it's not too bad. The steel ingots are going to use the iron ingots, and then also the 1 belt of coal that I need. Then I'm going to need to do a little bit of load balancing, and some of those ingots are going to then come over to here, and they'll combine with the iron ingots from this tower, and that will make my steel plates. It probably sounds more complicated than it is. Let me knock it out and I'll show you. The belts and lifts are in. Let me give you a quick run through. The first tower was easy. It was just 1 blueprint to 1 blueprint. The next towers over were pretty straightforward because I had 2 blueprints going into 6 blueprints. I just have this bottom one going to 1 splitter. It feeds the bottom 3. The second one then goes up to the 4th blueprint, and then it does the same thing and gets split to the top 3. And actually the very next tower is set up identical. I just decided to put the lifts on either side because I thought it would look cool. I am a sucker for symmetry. And the foundries only had 4 blueprints, so just 2 sets of splitters for those. The steel ingots are going to be coming from over here, and that is what I need to do next. So I realized I needed to push my steel beams 1 section over so that I could use this room right here to split my 115 into 75 and 40. And I've made another handy little diagram for us to follow. I use Excalidraw.com to make these, which just basically gives me a nice little template and easy way to lay everything out. I still have to place them and add all the numbers myself. But I enjoyed the challenge. I'm just going to line this up with the rest of those, and I think I should have enough space. This one really isn't too bad. We've got one merger, and then 4 splitters in a row. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Perfect. I need one merger on this side facing to the right, and then one merger on this side. We've got 115 going into here, but of course 115 is not really the best number to work with. So we're going to loop back 5, so this is going to be 120, but just to make sure that I don't run into any issues, let's just make that a mark 3. Split 120 in half, that gives me 60 and 60. Split one of those in half, and I've got 30 and 30. 15 and 15. And then 5, 5. And then for the last 5, let's do a short little lift here. And now here is a belt of 40 that's going to go onto my steel beams. And this right here is the 75 that's going to go over here. And those are going to become my steel plates. Now let's move on to the machines for the third row. Starting at the other end, concrete is up first. It's been pretty much all gray and black so far, so we'll add a touch of color with brown. I need 75 concrete, only 2 blueprints, so that's 24 machines, default rate of 15. That's right in the ballpark. All lined up. And just 2 of these. First tower down. Next up, bolted frames. Thankfully, I only need 25 of them. That'll be 4 blueprints or 24 machines. Default rate of 5. That's a familiar clock speed. All lined up. That takes care of the modular frames. Let's see what the other screw tower is leading into. Bolted iron plates. For these, I need 37.5. That's only going to take 2 blueprints. A whole 12 machines, divided by the default rate of 15. Yep, we just keep running into that clock speed. 1 and 2. Last one for this row is going to be making the steel screws. To make 520 screws, it would normally only take 2 constructors. That's beautiful. Which means I only need 1 blueprint of 12 machines. So the default rate is 260. That is awesome. That means we just need this one. Alright, so now this is where the belt work starts to get a little bit trickier. Not for this tower. This one's easy. It's of course because of all the screws. The tower on the right has 700, the one on the left has 625, so I've got to use more than 1 belt. The 625 lead into the bolted iron plates, which only has 2 blueprints. So I think my only option is to group the bottom 3, and that'll go to the bottom blueprint, and then the top 3 will then go to the top blueprint. The next one is 6 blueprints going into 4 blueprints, so it's going to do something really similar and group up the bottom 3 and then the top 3, and then those will just go into 1 splitter and split between the 2. And then the concrete just needs to have limestone plugged in. Just like that. Concrete only has 2 blueprints, so that's quick and easy. And like I said, for both of the screw towers, I'm just combining the bottom 3 and then the top 3. Those get sent over. And then this one gets split in between 2. But then the next one, it's just into 1 blueprint. So the bolted frames need all of those screws, and then they also need the reinforced iron plates, which is the next tower over. That belt's coming from there. And then for these, which are the reinforced iron plates, those need the screws, which is the tower right before it. And then they also need the iron plates coming from this tower. And so then that just snakes on over here. The last singular blueprint needs the screws, and those are going to be coming from this last tower that's over here in the corner. And then I just clean this up by spinning the merger around. So those steel ingots go over there for the plates. The remaining 40 are going to go right here and create my beams. 3 last towers. The steel screws, the final product of the heavy modular frames, and then this one. This one is going to be making my encased industrial beams. Time to spice it up to use some red for the final row. And of course I'm using the encased industrial pipe recipe because it's just better. I need 15 of these, which is going to need 3 blueprints of 6 each, so that's 18. Default rate of 4. Somehow, like half of the machines in this factory are clocked to this clock speed. Get it nice and lined up with our concrete. 1, 2, and 3. 1 down, 2 to go. And for this, we're back to the constructors, and we'll be making the steel beams. A whopping 10 steel beams is all I need to make all those screws, which doesn't even need 1 constructor, but we're going to use 1 blueprint, so that's 12 machines. Yeah, very underclocked, but I'm not mad. Just the 1, and that tower's done. Actually, I guess to completely finish this, I should do this right here. Now that one's done, although I have a feeling this is going to be too close. I already know. I'm going to need to replace this. I marked out a 4x4, but this tower is going to be a 5x5. In fact, I can't even use my Mark 1. I've been lucky so far and only needed the 3 input blueprint, but now I finally need the 4. Just 1 extra splitter stacked on top, everything else is identical. Normally, I go with the heavy encased frame. It's a great recipe. So what I said earlier about this thing being fixed, I don't know if that's true, because when I try to type in heavy, oh, now it shows up. I don't understand. I typed in heavy before, and only those 2 came up. And then I typed in flex, and it shows up. Who knows? But hey, I do have the recipe. I think the main difference between this and the one that I normally go with, this lets me get away with a bit less iron, at the cost of adding rubber. Or at least, I think that's why I chose it. The other big advantage to this recipe is it has the highest per minute rate for the machine. So power-wise, at least for this final step, is going to be the least. I need a whopping 5 heavy modular frames. And I'm going to use 2 blueprints, so that's 8 machines. Default rate 3.75 multiplied by 100. Fantastic. I think I'm just going to do the same thing and make sure that they're lined up this way, and it's just going to stick out a little bit. But since it's the last row, I think it'll be okay. After placing those gigantic towers last time, yeah, only 2 blueprints is just so easy. Alright, as far as the belt work goes, I don't think it'll be too bad, because even though I'm using all 4 of the inputs, one of them is coming from that black and red tower. The screws are coming from this tower. And then the modular frames are coming from this tower. So I've got everything right here, and I've only got to split it into 2 blueprints. That is all of the machines I need for the heavy modular frames, minus those pesky refineries that I still need for some more rubber. Well, it was pretty simple, but not quite as straightforward as I originally thought it was. There was one little hiccup, and that's because I decided to use only 1 blueprint for the steel screws. It makes sense, they're really underclocked. But the issue is how many in total I'm making. I'm making 520, and my max belt speed is only 480. I decided to just slightly edit the blueprint. So instead of this all getting merged down to the very bottom, the very middle one gets all grouped together, and then it goes into a splitter. And so half of it goes here, and then that goes to the top blueprint. The other half drops down here, it gets grouped together with the bottom floor, and then it feeds the bottom blueprint. Another good option would have been to just add a second blueprint, which would have the added benefit of saving a little bit more power, but not really a whole lot. Now it's time for the missing rubber. Compared to the computers, I need just a little bit more. I need 100 rubber, and to make that, I need exactly 200 resin. So instead of having to do any load balancing, I'm just going to be able to delete the sink and send it straight into some refineries. At 100% clock speed, I only need 5 refineries, and load balancing 5 really isn't that bad. But if I don't have to, I'm just not going to. I can save a tiny bit of power by placing a 6th one. And now I just need one splitter right in the middle. And that'll be 100 and 100. And the 300 resin will just plug in right to here. I'll use the good old lookout tower trick again. That looks right. Get it locked in place. Terrific. And just get a second one. Let's get all the clock speeds right. Actually, I looked out and this is already set to the correct clock speed. 33 and a third. 3 of those make 100. 6 of those would be 200. It also means each of these need to be set for 100. Get the horizontal to vertical in first. And then just a nice little straight section. Oh, I was hoping I could just connect it right there. I just decided to leave the other setup how it was and just connected it all through the water extractors. So right now those are filling up, but at this point they've got more than enough. Once I delete the sink and connect the belt, that'll get made, and then they will head over onto this belt, up and over. And over to the factory. If we zoom in, for now, they're just going to go into a sink because, as you can see with all those red lights, the only thing connected to power right now is that sink. And I may need to place a few miners and get those belted over. But let's go ahead and get this started so then we can work on that. The rubber has finally showed up here, and I even remembered to set up the smart splitter correctly. Looking good so far, and I doubt it's really going to take too long to get this completely warmed up unless there's some sort of issue. So I'll keep an eye on this, but now, like I said, I get to work on the power. The limestone node I'm using is right underneath all of this, but most of them are coming from just south of here. I've got a pier. 2 piers, 1 impure. Oh, that's bauxite. That's Sam. 1 more impure. Oh, and there's 1 last node I need. Sometimes I'm kind of an idiot. In the last video, I extended the road out quite a bit farther through the rocky desert so that I could pick up those motors and finish the modular engines. I'm not really sure what I was thinking, or if I just didn't see it. Because I definitely can't use this node without it going straight through the road. It's not even close. No matter which way I spin it, that is straight through it. And it's a pure node. If it was an impure and I just decided, oh, I probably won't need it, that's one thing. But a pure node? Feels like I committed a sin against Fixit. Lucky me, I get to move my road. You know what? It could be worse. If I have the miner facing this way, I really just need to move the whole road over by 1 foundation. And then it'll be close, but it'll definitely miss it. And it looks like I've still got at least a foundation of space before I just run into that rock, so I think this will work out. It's a pain, but it's 100% pain of my own doing. Welcome back to the new heavy modular frame factory. It actually didn't take too long to adjust everything, and I'll go show it to you in a second. But without all the decorations, oh, that probably only took me a little over an hour. The save is currently at 173 hours and 4 minutes. We take a look at the road now. The gap between the road and the rock is quite a bit smaller. But hey, there's still room to spare. And it comes close, but there's no clipping on this side either. So now I've got the coal that I need. And that just goes under the road. Then I just use the ceiling until it gets to the foundries over there on the second row. I've got the limestone node, and for those of you wondering, I thought he had 5 different towers that needed iron. You'd be correct. And this is where the 5th one was. I forgot that it was underneath here. But by splitting it up into the different towers, it also made it really easy. I didn't have to do any load balancing with all these different amounts. I just set each miner to the correct one. So the fact that one of them needed 156.25 and the other one needed that 76 2/3, which is, I think, what was it, 230/3. These weren't a big pain because I just got to split them up right from the source. That right there is the farthest node, and then it just groups up with these 3. And then all 4 of them head on over. Once they reach the factory, then I just use the floor holes to bring them up here because I thought it would be more fun to actually see all of the ore travel along the side of it. And they are conveniently in the right order, so I just needed to plug them in one by one. Except for this middle one. That one was the one that came from the node underneath. Once this factory is up and running, I'll have 3 out of the 4 things I need for the adaptive control units, but it's still going to take me a little time to build a factory to make the automated wiring. I might as well store as many of these heavy modular frames as I can. This awesome sink is not going to get kicked on, but it just feels wrong to not place it. But hey, at least when they're not being used, they only cost 0.1 megawatts, I think. So that's worth it. And now it's time to flip the switch on the adaptive control unit heavy modular frames. Things are getting a little bit closer here, but with all this underclocking, I'm sure I'll be fine. Only one way to really find out. Looks like the modular frames, encased industrial beams, and the screws are all on now. So now let's go ahead and finally send in the rubber. And just like that, surprised it's reading, well, there it drops. With 8 machines this underclocked, I don't think it's ever going to stay very consistent. I think the best thing I can do is just to check the machines and make sure that they're actually getting up to 100%. About half of them are at 100, half of them are at 98%, so we're looking good. I'll be able to keep an eye on this because for the next video, I'm not going far. This huge area in the middle of the rocky desert, it's too empty. It needs a factory. Now that all the machines are on, let's do one last double check of the power before we go, and didn't even use as much as I thought it would. I still got another 2,000 megawatts. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for being here. Out of the 3, I need the least of the adaptive control units this phase, but it's the most involved part. Go figure. With computers needing circuit boards, it was easy just to make more of those at the same time. The heavy modular frames are a little bit more involved, but spending a couple of minutes at the start to make sure I had enough space and laid everything out and labeled, it was definitely worth it. I now have 3 of the 4 parts I need automated. In the next video, I'll be staying here in the Rocky Desert to build an automated wiring factory. Thankfully, it only needs, let me check my notes. Oh, only 1,000 wires. Lucky me. Look forward to that, and thanks for watching.